share it, all of that good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves. If you could tell us your name, tell us about your kiddos, specifically focusing on your child or children with hearing loss, and a little bit shortly about your journey.
My name is Jihan. That's my husband Spencer, and we have two young boys. Our oldest Sebastian, and our youngest Sonny, who was born with mild hearing loss. And we were really fortunate in the sense that we knew about his hearing loss from the get-go. He didn't pass his newborn hearing screening, and so we came back to the hospital, got another screening, and he failed, and then we were referred to an audiologist where we took 2 ABR exams and found out that he had mild hearing loss. And so the audiologist that performed that ABR exam was really sweet, and I mean, I remember when we received the diagnosis, we were really overwhelmed and scared and nervous, and I remember her like mentioning Spokane Hope, but it like didn't occur to me to look the program up for a while as I was like digesting our son's diagnosis and like where to navigate parenthood from that point. And so I think like it took me about like 2.5, maybe even like a month. I just Googled Spokane Hope and watched the introductory video, and I was bawling and like submitted like a contact us form, and we've just been so happy. Sonny is speaking a lot and just so cute, and just really he's just like, I mean, he is hitting all his developmental milestones, and we know that the people here at Spokane Hope are a huge part of that.
So my name is Shayna. My daughter is Naomi. She decided not to sit here today, but she wanted me to let you know that she's 7 years old, that she was just a baby. She actually passed her newborn hearing screen, and we quickly realized that she was medically complex. She had quite a few needs. She had a feeding tube before she was 2 months old. And we were trying to figure out what was going on that resulted in her being failure to thrive. We were looking at all the conditions, like when you eat lunch meat or tuna or sushi and things like that. And someone just recommended we do a hearing test. Justin was like, well, she passed, who cares? And the audiologists were really frustrated because, everyone tries to put a regular hearing test on a 4-month-old. And, she too, I suppose, was frustrated by that age. And so afterwards I said, well, what should I be looking for in between now and, getting this ABR? And they said, well, she should turn to her name. She should startle at loud sounds. I was like, well, of course she does all of those things. And then I went home and realized that she does none of those things whatsoever, but she's really great at making up for it by being observant when you turn on the lights or you're, coming into a room. And so she has hearing aids. Her hearing loss has kind of changed. She was recommended a BAHA, and our insurance did not cover that, so she did not get a BAHA. So legislative advocacy has been really important to me. We actually did get new legislation 2 years ago that requires private insurances to cover at least a certain amount of hearing devices. So that's been really exciting. And I think the really fun thing is that Naomi's in 2nd grade now. She had, in addition to the Birth to Free program, she had 2 years at preschool, which really made her ready to succeed in a mainstream classroom. And I asked her how she feels about her hearing loss, and she says she feels good about it.
So I'm Melissa Bonnet, and I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old who are both bilaterally implanted. They both failed their newborn screens at the hospital. With Harper, we did the whole come back in 2 weeks. Oh, it's probably fluid. We'll refer you out. It wasn't fluid. She's profoundly deaf. With Caden, when he failed, I asked the screener at the hospital, well, do you want to test him again? And they said, yeah. And I didn't tell her we had a child with hearing loss. I just kind of played this out. So she came back, he failed, and she said, well, it's probably fluid in the ears. And I said, no, it's not fluid in the ears. He failed, he's probably deaf, and I don't want to come back in 2 weeks. I'll just call the ENT. And she says, well, do you want paperwork on hearing loss? I said, no, I really don't. I have a deaf child. She's like, oh, that makes way more sense now. And so Dr. Schmidt actually called me before I even called Spokane ENT and was like, I got your baby's paperwork, he failed too. And I said, he sure did. He goes, well, we'll see you, we'll start hearing aids, but I'll implant him. If he's growing well, we'll implant at 7 months old. So Caden was implanted at 8, he was just shy of 8 months old, and Harper was implanted at 10 months old. And they've done really well. I mean, Harper is now mainstream kindergarten with minor accommodations, and Caden is here with Mr. Jared. So my difference was I was not, when Harper failed her ABR, my experience is way different than yours. First time mom sobbing, and they said, your baby failed, your baby's deaf, here's your paperwork, have a good night. And I didn't know where to go. And so I did what anybody did. And I stayed up Googling and crying and posted on Facebook. And luckily I have a background. I worked at a pediatric therapy office. So I have a lot of friends who are speech therapists. And one of them said, you need to call Kim at Hope. And so I did. And that's how we ended up here. So.
And I'm Angela Fiddler. I'm the new executive director of Spokane Hope. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your children with us. They are just a blessing to see every day, and I feel so privileged to work in this office with this team and to see these kiddos making all of this progress, even in a short amount of time. So we're really glad that they are here. I am also a mom of 2 children who are profoundly deaf, and they have bilateral cochlear implants now. Actually, my son, some of you met him. He's here tonight helping watch some of the kids. He's 16, and then my daughter is now 19, and she's a sophomore in college. But we went through kind of a crazy process of diagnosis. Our daughter, our oldest child, passed her newborn hearing screening at birth, and we aren't really sure what happened, whether she had progressive loss or if the screening wasn't accurate. So we didn't find out about her hearing loss until she was 3, and she was severe to profound. So she missed those first 3 years of early intervention, which are crucial. They also thought they had misdiagnosed her originally as having autism, and so it was a very confusing process. And then when our son was born, he did not pass his newborn hearing screening. So it was really interesting because they were basically diagnosed with hearing loss at the same time. And so my son received early intervention services from birth, and then my daughter started intervention services at 3, and they were able to attend a school similar to Hope that provided listening and spoken language services. And the difference in my son getting help from birth to age 5, he was able to mainstream right away because he received the listening and spoken language services and worked with the teachers of the deaf. And then my daughter, it took her a little bit longer to be able to mainstream and catch up with her hearing peers. But for those of you that were at our hoedown auction, the amazing, I talked about this at the auction, our daughter, she did catch up, and she ended up graduating high school, with a 3.96 GPA, her associate's degree, and now she's a nursing student at Colorado Christian University in her 2nd year, and just doing phenomenal. And then our son is a junior in high school now, and he plays electric guitar, he does all the sports, and so they've been able to live their life without limits because of the services that they received. So that's a little bit about our story.
Let's start with the question, what are some resources or supports that you found especially helpful along the way?
Yeah, so I can start, and then we can I'll pass it on down. But some of the resources and supports that have been helpful along the way. When my kids were really young, we were part of a school similar to this. So the groups like this, the parent groups, where you can meet other families and connect, and different play groups. We also were connected through Hands and Voices, which is an international organization that supports families that have children with hearing loss. And we also were part of AG Bell, which is another nonprofit that brings families together and provides support. So we pretty much just reached out to whatever was available to us and tried to plug in as much as we could, because the hearing loss community is very small. And I learned the most from talking to other families and other parents. And it was great for our children to be able to see other kids that had hearing loss as well and be able to connect with them. Does anybody else have something they want to say about that?
Do you want us just to pass it down, or what do you want us to do?
Just a popcorn, yeah.
I am very grateful. We started with Amy from the get-go. We actually brought Harper in before she even had hearing aids, and I think that was a very invaluable resource. And also, I found Facebook groups and other parents, and talking to other parents about, okay, what did you do in this situation? Is this normal? Or just the community, because like you said, it is very small, and a lot of people have different opinions on what you should do with your child, and that comes down to being a parent, but there's also very strong opinions on implants, sign language, spoken language, and what you should do. And so other parents has been really great to bounce ideas off of.
I can say I was devastated, getting this diagnosis. I was very familiar with medical complexity, but had no idea what to do with hearing loss. And just not knowing what that would mean. That was the thing that scared me. And so the community at Hope School, I am so grateful for Amy, who was with us on the journey. Naomi's best little friend from Hope School, that they still spend time together, that they have that together. I remember it was right before COVID that we were attending one of the, just like this, right before the shutdown. And it was before she had started the preschool. She was just in toddler group, and I remember being so worried because she was just this little wallflower. Was really shy, didn't engage. Amy made her terrified of things like feathers. Okay, Amy thought she was doing a great job. But it was, I think I actually saw my daughter change at one of these nights where there used to be Miss Vi, she did music for kids at toddler group, and I'm sure she did it at the school too. And Naomi heard music and got to dance with it and be animated with it, and it absolutely changed her. And so she became this outspoken little girl who's going to just be whoever she's going to be. And, we've tried to facilitate that through music, through a whole lot of reading. Someone told me if your child had 5 nursery rhymes memorized by the time they go to kindergarten, they're going to graduate the top of their class in high school. And so she knows a lot of nursery rhymes. But I think it is finding community and finding a confidence that, like you said, Melissa, there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of pressure to make the right decision for your kid. From everybody. Everyone has an opinion, and most of them don't have a child with hearing loss.
Never have. Costco. I get opinions at Costco every time. Every time.
I'm a counselor and I don't like people. But I think just knowing that whatever you're doing, whether it's a support group online, or you found other parents, or you don't, you just have your friends, I think the most important thing is using yourself and just knowing that you're making the best decision with what you have.
I am so sorry that you had the experience that you had, because I feel like when we found out, our hands were just held throughout the entire process. I mean, just from like, even the tech who was performing the ABO exam was like so kind, and then the audiologist, I so wish I remembered her name. I feel horrible.
Is it Hannah, blonde hair?
No.
Nancy?
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Betty.
And
Nancy retired.
I know, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But yeah, I mean, you could just tell that she was very experienced, but the way that she addressed me felt extremely personal, and yeah, like she told me about hope, and I'm glad that I remembered. I'm glad that hope is such a like perfect name that even like when a parent who's so distressed can like remember and like Google it, that yeah, so I'm so grateful for Nancy, because she just like, it was so overwhelming, and I just remember like, I wish I was like one of those parents where like you receive some bad news and then you just like pounce and you're going and preparing for your kids, but like for me, I was just like withdrawing and just so overwhelmed, and so I was really grateful that, and like the community here has just like really held my hand through the process, and like the audiologist here, like Dr. Jones Hannah, she's amazing, and Dr. Schmidt is also really like personable and so like technically talented. So yeah, I feel like the community here is great, and it's funny that y'all talked about the many opinions. When I first was like, okay, like we're at Spokane Hope, like let's go all in. I remember going on Instagram and trying to find like, content creators that were part of the community, and I like had to unfollow some of them because yeah, the opinions are varied and also extremely intense.
Thank you guys for sharing. How do you encourage your child to connect with other children, either children with hearing loss or even children without hearing loss? How do you find that connection with their peers?
I think I just go with the flow, and I bring Sunny to all of the events and play dates that Sebastian, his older brother, goes to. And I remember the first time another young kid came up to me and was like, "What's that orange stuff in your kid's ear?" And I think every parent kind of remembers like the first time that they're like, "Oh, like okay, this is like their life. This is what they're gonna go through." And I just, I just wanted Sunny to know that it's nothing to be embarrassed, ashamed about. And I was just like, oh, like some people wear glasses because they can't see, and he wears hearing aids so that he can, hear a little bit better. And kids are so funny because they're just like, oh, okay, cool. And you just like run off, and so yeah, I don't know, I just go with the flow, and like Sunny's gonna make friends through this community, and so I think having like a diversity of friends is going to be helpful for him, and yeah, figuring it out still.
Yeah, I think that some of it is just allowing her to be who she is in any environment that she is in. And really as a family, learning to celebrate diversity. And you know what, we can even ask questions when we see other people and we don't know. And so I think that's been enriching. However, we do have a special strategy that Naomi has practiced: kindergarten, first grade, second grade. First week of school, she's got a little baby doll with some custom-made hearing aids that look just like hers. She's got little books, and the school is on board with sharing all those resources. So I think kindergarten, she had a little friend who was like, I want to cut off his little headphone cord so he could have, hearing aids just like Naomi. So it's definitely changing. We're reaching an age of awareness, noticing that there may be something different, and helping her and her friends recognize we're all just different in our own ways. But I can definitely say her school is now asking for the baby doll. We even had a baby doll for daycare, and when she finished daycare, we were going to take the baby doll, and we're like, but the baby doll belongs here now. Like the children will visit. So yeah, I think that's been our kind of strategy to just normalize it.
So our strategy is also normalizing it. We actually live in a small community north. We're not in Spokane County. So my children are the only children that are implanted in the district. There is one little boy who has hearing aids, but mine are their first deaf kids in the district. So it's kind of been a unknown waters and convincing the school many different things that, well, they are typical children and they can put up a face for you, that there's nothing different about them. They do still need these accommodations. But we've always just encouraged Harper, like, we see people stare. I've got 2 kids, one's got pink ones and one's got blue ones. They're bright and obvious that there's something on their head. And people ask questions, and I've always said, oh, Harper, they're asking what's on your head. And I've really encouraged her to self-advocate and tell people, and she'll tell you, oh, these are my cochlear implants. They help me hear because these ears don't work. And she just moves on, and right now she's in kindergarten and kids are still really accepting. But she did come home one day and said, when do I get rid of these? Because my friends don't have them. And so we did the same thing. We explained, Mommy wears glasses because she can't see. You wear cochlear implants because you can't hear. And so we've kind of done the same thing of pointing out differences. Oh, he has a wheelchair, aren't those cool? Like just, and she moves on pretty well still, but.
Sorry, I just thought of something. I remember her first set of aids. I remember when we had the clear molds, which get really gross from earwax. And we continued those clear molds for a long time because I don't think I wanted people to see. I think that I wanted to hide it. And so going in, I mean, kind of around preschool, going into kindergarten, I realized the more that I try to hide it, the more that she's gonna feel different. And when she picked her first hearing aid molds, she just went orange and hot pink and red. And she's so excited about her hot pink hearing aids. And so learning to have confidence, and also I kind of put it in her hands. Sometimes she's like, no, I don't want to show you my stuff. You know what I mean? And she just keeps her hair over. And another day she's like, check them out. So, and just kind of being attuned to that. But definitely recognizing I had to let go of my own fear.
I don't know if you experience it as much with hearing aids, but I know like we shop at Costco a lot. But people stare and or they whisper, and I'm always thinking, okay, they might not hear you, but I can hear you just fine. And so it's always okay, why don't you just ask me what this is? Because when they're little, people are like, oh, I've never seen a kid with hearing aids or with cochlear implants. Not to go off on a tangent, but my brother-in-law actually was like, when we told the family that Harper failed and she would get hearing aids and go on to cochlear implants, he said, how dare you put hearing aids on a child? I've never heard of a child having hearing loss, and you are going to ruin your baby. Why don't you get her school books and braces while you're at it? You're gonna hurt her worse. And I will never forget that. I mean, we don't get along anyways. But I was like, how do I even respond to this? Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
And that's okay. I think we've all had some experiences like that. I remember one time I was shopping with my son and he was in the stroller and he had his little blue hearing aids and ear molds in, and somebody came up to me and started lecturing me because they thought that I had like earbuds for him to listen to music, and having explained that, no, my child is deaf, he needs us to hear, and you should have seen the look on his face, but yeah, I mean, I think we've all had a couple instances where we've had to deal with people just not understanding, and it takes a lot of explanation. But going back to your question, when my kids were younger, we had done a lot of things just to kind of take the mystery out of, what these things are on our head and in our ears. And so like in their classroom, we used to play a game with this FM system here, and we'd, with the teacher's help and permission, he would pick someone out of the classroom, and then they would go outside of the classroom and shut the door and, you know, say a secret word to my son that only he could hear with his implant through, you know, the FM system, and so then he'd be able to say, oh, you said the word blue, and then the kid would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know, you heard that. Nobody else heard that, but you heard that. So it was kind of like a superpower for him, and it helped kind of build his confidence. Thinking about my son when he did this. And so we would, you know, do some things like that. And I think once kids, you know, when they're younger, know what it is, they're pretty accepting for the most part. Now I will speak, things change over time. And I will never forget when my daughter was in middle school and she came home in tears and she said, why did God make me like this? You know, why do I have these, why can't I hear? Why do I look different? And you know, just that trying to fit in. And, you know, I don't know if I have any great advice other than I was just really proud of her for talking about it with me. And I told her, you know, anytime you're feeling like this, let's just have these conversations, you know. I want you to always tell me how you feel. And then, again, we talked about everyone is different in different ways. Like you said, whether you have glasses or there's other disabilities, and your friends that are true friends will love you for who you are. And those are the friends that you want to invest time in. And so just having those conversations as they get older, and keeping those lines of communication open, I think, you know, just really can help. So,
Thank you. Can you guys talk about some accommodations that have been helpful for your child within the mainstream school setting, or just even leading up to that point?
So my daughter's in college now, and as academics have become, you know, a little more difficult, she does utilize transcription services. So the professor will wear like a microphone, and then she has a tablet, and she can see real time every word that her teacher is saying, and then she's able to get a transcript of that also, so she can use it for studying, because she's got classes like anatomy and physiology, so it's hard to always keep up. And then, of course, the FM system is crucial to be able to hear a noise, so we've always used that. And, you know, preferential seating, being, you know, in the front of the classroom. And I think a lot of it just goes back to really educating those teachers, especially when your children mainstream, and your teachers need to know what your child needs, you know, so frequent check-ins. Oh, did you hear that? I mean, there have been a couple of times over the years where, like, my son missed an assignment because the teacher, you know, they didn't write it down and it wasn't documented anywhere. They just talked about it and he missed it. And so, you know, just really educating the teachers on, you know, this is what my child needs, and working with them in that capacity, so.
So for Harper, she's in kindergarten, so it's still pretty, I mean, it's still structured, but not as structured as like lectures. So for right now, she uses an FM and speech therapy. That's really all she's getting right now, and I check in with the principal and the teacher a lot, and she did lose an FM recently. So that was a fun adventure on why she needs this, and we've done the go in the hallway and say, but I said, be careful, because you say if you ask her if she wants a cookie, she's gonna say, where's my cookie? I felt for that once. But yeah, she right now doesn't have much. I have in her IEP preferential seating in kindergarten. It's not as relevant, and then closed captioning for when they have videos. So here you go.
Sorry, one other accommodation we had, and I just want to share this because you may run into this when your children are in, you know, mainstream school, but like the noise in the lunchrooms can be completely overwhelming for kids, and it made our daughter just, she couldn't even function. And so we worked with the school to have a place for her to be able to have lunch that was quiet, and that she could pick a friend to come with her, so it was kind of special. And, that way she could hear, have a conversation while she's, having lunch and not be completely overwhelmed. So just wanted to share that with you in case that's something you want to think about later on.
Melissa, will you tell where they found the FM?
So we spent hours searching the playground. We went through the garbage can of the playground. That's fun. One of them was found in the vacuum cleaner. The janitor went through the vacuum 3 times for us looking for it, and he called later on, because it wasn't until like 6 o'clock that night, and said, so how much money am I holding in my hands? I found one, and the other one was not found. And I've tried to figure out what she was doing, but my best guess is Harper took them off to show a friend, and she set them on the table, and they must have got brushed off. She told us that she took them off on the playground. They were not taken off on the playground. I don't think they ever made it to the playground. I don't know at what point of the day she took them off. So now that is another thing they check. When she leaves the room, does she have her FMs on? When she comes back from recess, does she have her FM on? But, yep, one was in the vacuum.
I think I'm very conflict avoidant. I don't like to have to say when things aren't going well and make a stink. I would say the first week of kindergarten, she came home, her kindergarten teacher who had not worked with hearing loss yet, called me and was just running through and explained that they were going to take off, I forget what it's called, but she had something attached to her gate to connect to the DM system. I can't remember what it's called.
The receiver?
The receiver, thank you. She had receivers, which, they're expensive. The district doesn't want to lose the receivers.
That's what the little boots is what Harper's
Yes.
are the receivers.
Yes, so, I don't believe it was the audiologist. It was someone working with the audiologist who was very concerned about the cost of that receiver. Told her teacher, well, it would be best if you just take those off. Anytime that she's going to recess, the gym, the lunchroom, anywhere that it could get lost. And so they wanted my child to not be able to, and then they decided it would be too hard to take the receiver on and off that many times per day because she can't do it herself. And so instead she should just take her hearing aids out during those times. And so, and I have to say, I really appreciate our district, and I called the audiologist. I mean, I'm just struggling, because I call, I leave a voice, and I'm like, hey, if you could call me back, I just want to talk about some things. Not a really big deal, but... And then I get stressed, and I follow up by email in my kindest way possible. And the audiologist was yelling when she called me back, because she was so upset about it. It was a lack of education. And her teacher just didn't know that was ridiculous. And so it is just learning to have that voice, teaching them to have that voice. It is Naomi's microphone, it is not her teacher's microphone. So she carries it from class to class. Who knew that a 5-year-old in closed captioning is a great idea, but turn it on at home too when they're watching cartoons.
I hear so much better with it on.
Oh, me too. I can't watch TV without it.
So she can read because she's been reading closed captioning since she was 3.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I really want to also mention we call it hearing fatigue. At the end of the day, oh my gosh, when they put recess at the end of the day or gym at the end of the day, it's too much. She's lost her processing capacity and learning to advocate. This year she's actually riding on the special needs bus because by the end of the day she was exhausted, and giving her space to emotionally regulate after she's had to do all of that work. And here's my favorite thing, sorry, I have a lot. At our IEP meeting last year, I had shared, there's some bullying on the bus, and, there's all these things that just our kids, regardless, may experience in schools. And the audiologist was like, hey, why don't we set her up with a big sister? So this is my very favorite accommodation that's been made, is that we have another kid in the district that's in high school that we go and meet at ice cream, and Naomi just gets to ask her questions.
Does that child have, does the big kid have hearing loss as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's so kind, and that kid says all the real stuff that she doesn't say to her mom to a 7-year-old.
Oh, sorry, I don't really have
No,
anything to say. I'm just learning and thank you.
I will say that when I did Harper's IEP meeting, Amy had great resources, but I also went on Facebook and asked other parents, like, what did you put in your IEP? And I had one mom that literally sent me her daughter's entire IEP. She said, I work at a district, I wrote this up, my child has hearing loss. They may seem silly to ask for in kindergarten, put them in now.
I think that's the best resource as parents, other parents, because you guys are living it every single day, and learning from other parents is where it really is gonna make a difference.
I also refuse to allow them to have the language hearing impairment in her IEP. And they know that now. And so it is corrected before it comes to me.
So what does it say?
Hearing loss.
Here, okay.
Or deaf and hard of hearing is
Deaf and hard of
also
hearing.
deaf and hard of hearing.
Looking back, what do you wish you would have known, either at the beginning of your journey, middle of your journey? Is there something that kind of sticks out that you just wish maybe someone would have told you at any point in your journey?
Sorry, I thought our meeting was on Thursday, and so I didn't go through the questions. So I'm like, in real time.
And you can pass them and come back.
You don't have to answer.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no.
No, it's okay. I can quickly answer. Honestly, I don't know if there's anything I could tell myself. I think all of it was, all the grieving, all the confusion was part of this journey of like, having compassion for people who are different, and also just like being so grateful for programs like Hope that exist. And yeah, I think I don't know if I would really want to tell myself anything. I think each part of the process was so important in how I am going to like mother and like be a support to my son. Maybe like not to be as stressed out because yeah, everything is going to be okay. It's going to be like better than okay. And like I was reading, or I was on a Reddit thread, and like some parent was talking about how their wife lost it because she was chewing her son out and he just like turned his hearing aid off. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like a nice superpower to be able to just like tune people out and like tune people in. And yeah, like I think the whole process has just been, up and down, but I'm grateful for it. And yeah, I think it just makes you like a more empathetic person to everyone's life journey. So.
I think that I just knew that it was gonna be okay. I was the parent, man, when I realized it, I was like slamming doors and screaming in her face and banging pots and pans, and I'm like, well, doc, and he was working, he was like not home, he was in another part of the state, and so I'm just all alone. But yeah, I think just knowing that it's going to be okay, and that, I mean, it was so hard to accept it. I had so many people who told me that people immediately telling me about Spokane Hope and all of that. But it was so hard in that grieving process. And now, we laugh about her hearing loss. Like, I love the days when she argues with me and tells me she doesn't have hearing loss and she doesn't need her hearing aids, and then I respond and she says, what? Or I look at her and I say, Naomi, can you hear me? And she goes, no. That it is kind of a funny gift to our family, but it took time to get there.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay that it takes time.
Looking back, I think I would have believed that my kids are going to be fine. They're totally fine. There's nothing, I wouldn't change them at all. Because you do hear, they're fine, they're just like every other kid, they just can't hear. And I wish I would have believed it a little bit more. And I wish I would have known how many amazing people we would meet just because our kids have hearing loss that we wouldn't have ever met otherwise. There would be no reason to meet some of these people that are just amazing people in general.
Looking back, I think, hearing loss, now that we've kind of been through this whole journey, honestly, I wish I would have known what a blessing it was going to be for our family. For our kids, I feel like having hearing loss has been almost like this protective filter from the world, And they just, I don't know, they kind of miss some of the things that it's okay to miss, I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's okay.
Do you think it's because you try to shield them in a way of like not putting them in an environment where they would struggle, or it's just because they just missed it in general?
I don't think so, because, they pick up bad words at school and then come home and then we have to talk about what that meant, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a bad word, I remember sitting down with them, one night, we had to go through, well, almost all of them, we didn't want to do something that wasn't age appropriate, but yeah, I don't know, and the other thing is, they just have this sensitivity for other people and for other kids, and I think that has a lot to do with having hearing loss and, disability. It's made them really resilient and just, overcomers, very, they can tackle anything, and it's just really set them up for life. More mature, I would say, than maybe some kids because of what they've been through, so.
Oh, I have one from Dad.
Yeah.
I think one thing is that with both kids having hearing loss, it's really put me in check in a way of not letting my frustration get the best of me, because am I frustrated at you because of your behavior, or am I even more frustrated and not checking that you heard me? Because that has happened, where we have disciplined for behavior and because they weren't listening, when reality is they had dead batteries or they just didn't hear me for whatever reason. So I think that having them have hearing loss has put me in check in multiple ways and made my frustrations, I have to check in and be sure, like, is this really what, like, take a step back, basically.
Okay, tell us one funny or unexpected moment you've had with your child that made you laugh or feel proud. Just one.
Yeah.
You don't want to be here all day.
Oh, this is funny. When my son, I think he was in first grade, and his teacher was using the FM system, she forgot that you probably don't want to wear that when you go to the bathroom. And he came home and he's like, Mom, she keeps wearing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like, how do we deal with this? And so, thankfully he was really kind about it and didn't go blabbing into everybody else. But I thought that was hilarious. And the poor teacher, we talked to her, and I don't think she ever forgot to take it off again. So,
That was one of the teachers.
yeah, be careful of this. It picks up a lot. So.
Most recently, Kaden, our 3-year-old, has informed Daddy that Mommy's car needs to go bonk, 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 like Daddy's truck. And I think that is hilarious that he can even pick that up, to be honest.
That's cute.
I have two. One is that my child does not know when the ice cream truck is around. So awesome.
That's so good.
But she was the kid that turned on her hearing aids and had zero reaction, just acted like it didn't happen. Her first word sign was cracker, and her first verbal word was duck. And I wish, like, at that point, we just knew that was her character. Like, she was not going to stroke our egos. She was just going to be who she was. And it's so fun to see that, like, elevated and amplified through, her hearing loss and things. And we celebrate everything so much more.
My Sonny is like in his toddler era where he is just yanking his hearing aid out at any opportunity, and he had taken his hearing aid out, and I tore my house apart. I was looking everywhere for it, and I could not find it. I'm so stressed out. I knew it was in the house, but I was just like looking, like literally, I think I spent over like an hour and a half just like cleaning, looking for it. And my son, my oldest son, Sebastian, is like riding his bike, and he goes, "Mom, Sonny's hearing aid." And I was like, "What?" And like Sonny had been riding the bike, yanked the like top of the like bike off and stuffed his hearing aid like into the like shaft of the bike. And if it hadn't been for Sebastian, like I would never have found it.
I have a story like that too.
Ever.
We took Cadence apart one time for
water, and quickly I set him down for a nap, and then I couldn't find the magnet piece, and then tore his room apart, and Harper comes in and goes, "Why is Caden's ear attached to the curtains?"
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock, so we're gonna open the floor up. Does anyone have any? We did have some questions submitted when you guys filled out the job form, but any other questions come up now? If not, I can go to those questions. No? Oh, go for
I'd
it.
love to get those IEPs you were talking about.
They're very helpful to have, just ideas, for sure. I'd be happy to email you some of the information.
That'd be great.
Can I get on that list too? Because
Me?
I'm doing Maddie's right
Yep.
now.
I'll get them to Amy, and Amy can, or Caitlin can distribute like what ideas, because I didn't put all of them in our IP, and I'm sure you guys have some great ones with older kids.
Her grandmother is also a principal, so we just had her do all of it.
I'm willing to share ours.
So nice. Okay, any potty training tips and tricks for a child that may seem overwhelmed auditorily or visually?
I'm gonna
You'll just listen
take
in and
I'm
take
gonna
notes.
suck it in.
I honestly waited. I just waited. I figured she's not gonna go to college in diapers, so I just waited. If it didn't work, I just waited. And my second, he picked it up. So I guess I didn't have struggles with the. I just wait.
I just waited.
I agree. I think that they've got a lot of stuff that they're processing, trying to make sense out of. Our daughter does not have the muscle tone to wait properly. We bought a bidet, okay? But I know we have a water sensor in case the bidet doesn't get turned off.
Like a
Yeah.
flood sensor.
Yes, because it happened 3 times.
Oh no.
But I think that sometimes it's just being attuned and recognizing it's a lot, and they are, unless your child has terrible muscle tone, they are going to get there. I think there's so much pressure, isn't there? Because like everyone else's kids are,
They're 2. I waited. Harper was
Yeah.
3.5.
yeah. So I think that's it's hard to play the comparison game, watching other people doing things that maybe your kid's focused on, hearing words, and that's a big deal.
They are working so hard. Let's chat quickly about just advocating. Like, how can you advocate best for your child who doesn't communicate in the typical way? Whether that's in some stressful IEP meetings that some of you experience, or whether that's just with family members, or what's some advice you can give around just advocating for your child?
Don't be the quiet one. If you know what is best for your kid, find the people who will support your belief and don't back down.
Love it.
I think ours has really been learning to be attuned. We have a quiet child who won't mention. I remember one day we picked her up at daycare, and she immediately told me that she needed new batteries in her hearing aid, and realized that she had been like that all day. And so really helping her recognize that she can speak up for herself, and that means I have to learn to do that as well. And I think learning to have the uncomfortable conversations, learning to recognize what are some of those cues. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Our big thing right now is actually, she's a perfectionist. She likes to do everything right. And so helping her learn that she can acknowledge that during the school day and not come home with all the emotions, like she can acknowledge that she's having a hard time and talk to a teacher or use a calming space. So it's been just a lot of us figuring out what's going on with you and what do you need with that. And she's learning.
I remember I had reposted one of Spokane Hope's posts on my Instagram story, and I had somebody like respond and say like, what's wrong with your boy? And I just remember like my first response is to just, go at it. But I think now that I'm like a parent and I'm supposed to lead by example, like I want to teach Sunny that like there are times where like it is productive to be like, to stand up for yourself or to advocate for yourself, and then also there's a perfectly like appropriate time to just be like, this is kind of just like it's not your responsibility to like teach somebody, and so if you just want to be dismissive of them, like that's totally fine.
Your own explanation.
And so like I want to teach that balance because sometimes it's just not even worth the effort and the emotion, and so I just want my son to be able to like brush off things and not let comments stick. So
As far as advocating, so when our children were about middle school age, I think it's really important to make sure that they're involved in their IEP or 504 process, that they are the ones that are telling the teachers what they need, because if the child or kid is telling the teacher, it's more effective. And I think also just having high expectations for what you want for your child. So when my daughter entered her freshman year of high school, I had contacted like the school psychologist, and I said, I expect all of her teachers to be at a meeting with us, and so that she can talk about what she needs. And they did, they showed up. But I also want to say, be nice to these people. Like, they don't know everything, and some people can go in there and just, I need this for my kid and they deserve that, and it's like, you don't get anywhere that way. Like, how can we work together and let me help educate you? And I used to send the teachers like a YouTube video of what it sounds like for a child to use an FM system, like what they're hearing. And they would always thank me for that, because it's like, I had no idea that it made that big of a difference, in the classroom setting. So anyways, my advice is, be nice, have high expectations, and teach your child to advocate for themselves. Because, now my daughter's in college, and I'm not there to help her decide what she needs to be successful, And so, thankfully, she's learned that along the way, because she's had experience with that and can ask for what she needs, and she feels confident in that. And it's okay to ask for accommodations or what you need. So that's kind of our experience with advocacy. Do you guys have any questions about that? Anything else? No? Okay. A very captive audience here. Yes, Jared.
Can I just make a quick note for everyone? All of your children on an IEP, you can change that IEP anytime you need to. You do not need to wait that year for the meeting to get scheduled. If your child needs something or expresses something to you, or you feel like you're not getting something from the school, you contact those people and let them know you need to have an IEP meeting. They're required to have one. So if something changes, either with your child or with you're not seeing the progress, or something's happening that you're seeing that they're not getting what they need, you start that process. They're required to answer you and to have that meeting.
And I'll add, I think a lot of times it does come back to the education piece, that they just don't have the knowledge, specifically around listening spoken language. And I hope you all know we're always here. Yes, your child might leave and graduate Hope, but we are always here to help. answer questions, write goals, and help you advocate for your child as well. Because I think that's huge. I think that education piece is huge for your kids.
Can I add one thing?
I have had very difficult pushback from our school district. And I do agree being nice because I now show up and volunteer on Popcorn Fridays and I'm the squeaky wheel and I've got a lot of good feedback from that. But I did get a lot of pushback and I did have to find the people who, because my district doesn't understand. I don't have an audiologist in our school district. They don't know anything about hearing loss. But I did have to explain, like I had to find the resources because I did receive so much pushback. And our superintendent was like, look, I've got 200 and some odd special needs kids, why should your kid get this? And I had to defend myself and there were a lot of tears involved. But in the end, my husband looked at him and said, what would you do for your 4 sons? And he said, that's not a fair question because I do exactly what you're doing right now.
There you go. Sorry, I just want to say one thing. Also, I mean, we have to know what's realistic, for the school district. And yes, sometimes we have to really fight, but there was, for instance, nobody knew how to use this FM system if it, malfunctioned or whatever. And the audiologist can come out in the public school system where we lived to fix it for 2 weeks. So I had to become the expert. Like, there are things I had to take upon myself. If I wanted my daughter to be able to use, there just wasn't anybody. And so, sometimes it's you that has to take care of it.
Working with them.
Yeah, working with
That's
them.
what I've done.
Yeah, or working with them or trying to train somebody on that, but there just isn't always someone, so.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay. Thank you all so much. Again, this is going to be posted on YouTube, so you can go back, refer to it. We'll get it up in the next couple of days. And then as always, you can always reach out to any of us if you, I'm sure you guys wouldn't mind if they ask for contact information or anything like that. So just let us know how we can help.
Yeah, please feel free to follow up. And if there are any resources that we can provide that are helpful, we are more than happy to do that. And we will have more parent nights, and we'd love to hear what you want to talk about. So if there are any topics that come to mind, maybe over the next couple weeks, I'd really like to hear more about this, please let us know, because we want to tailor this to be a time where, we're answering your questions and, able to give you what, you're here for. So, don't hesitate to let us know what you want us to talk about. Yes, Jerry.
Can I just make a comment? I was just talking to Nico's family back here, and I said, you gotta remember that, look around the room when you're looking for a support system. Every parent, every adult in this room, in one way or another, has gone through what you're going through. And if you're on your hardest day, they've probably had that hard day. There are people in here that you can talk to. Reach out to them and talk to them. Because that's where you're gonna find your biggest support, is from people who've gone through it.
And usually, everybody's willing to share. Like, there's no secrets.
Yeah. I'm happy to share. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We are so glad that you're here. And if you have any further questions, let us know. But we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.